Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a list of 20 books that I haven't read. Some of these are going to be books that I started maybe the first or second in the series, but I never finished the series, and other ones are maybe authors who I've never read any of their works or series that I've never started. I also thought this could be helpful for all of you and hopefully a little informative to let you know if I plan on picking some of these up, when I plan on picking some of these up, and for some of them, maybe I don't plan on picking them up. There are a lot of books on this list, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. The first one would be any of the books in the A Song of Ice and Fire series. I have not started that series, which I feel like some people actually, I don't know, there's almost a sense of, yeah, I get it, because of the fact that, you know, it's not done yet, and it's looking like it's gonna be a while before it is. I do really want to read the series, I'm just not in any hurry to pick it up anytime soon. The next series on this list, I read some of them when I was a child. I don't remember them that well, and I don't plan on picking them back up, and that would be Harry Potter. I know Harry Potter is a really big deal to a lot of people, and I'm not here to try and make fun of it or tell you you're dumb for liking a middle grade series or anything like that. It's just that I remember liking them well enough when I was a kid, and that's it. I don't really care to start the series back over again. There's a lot of stuff I really would love to read, and it's just not on the list. Next would be Cassandra Clare. This is a very, very well-known young adult fantasy writer, and I read the first book in her Shadowhunter series in high school, and all I really remember is the "is that my sister or is that my lover" trope, which I feel like that's a bizarre trope, but it shows up in fantasy, I feel like, a lot. I don't know that I am opposed to picking up Cassandra Clare. I definitely don't remember enough of that one book to where I would feel like it's repetitious for me to try reading it again, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe someday, maybe not. That one I'm kind of lukewarm toward. Next up, we have any of the Dritz books. There's a lot of them now, and these are kind of older fantasy books, and they're definitely very traditional elves, and they're being dwarves and things like that. I've heard they're really fun, and this is definitely a series I plan on getting to. In fact, I want to get to the first trilogy this year sometime. I did a poll on a previous video asking you guys, because some people, when I say I want to start with Icewind Dale, which chronologically when it comes to when they were published came first, I said I wanted to read that one, and I had some people very passionately say, like, you have to read, no, you have to read the prequel one first. And so I did a poll, and then the majority still voted for Icewind Dale. So I think I'm going to start with Icewind Dale first. I don't know if I'll ever read all of the Dritz books, because I think there's like in the 20s now or something, but I do want to read at least those first two sets of trilogies. Next up would be anything by Neil Gaiman. I would like to read something by Neil Gaiman. I think I'm going to start with The Ocean at the End of the Lane, because I've heard that one is great. I know whenever I mention that I haven't read Neil Gaiman and I ask all of you what your suggestions are, the man's written so many books that I just feel like I end up getting so many different suggestions, but I think I'm gonna stick with Ocean at the End of the Lane. Next up would be The Night Circus. This is always sold, I've seen, in regular fiction, even though from what I understand, it has fantastical elements in it, but apparently it's like good enough for literary fiction. But I have heard that the writing is very beautiful, very whimsical, very lush, and I definitely want to give it a go. The only negative I've really heard from some people is that it can be a tad boring, but it's actually one of the books set up for a buddy read this year. My husband and I are doing this thing where we're buddy reading certain books each month, and that is one of them, so that will get read this year. Next up, we have a couple of older young adult series. One of them would be the Graceling series. I have the first one. I don't know if I'm going to be picking it up this year, but I definitely want to read this. I've heard it's very good, and every now and then, reading an older young adult book is really refreshing nowadays. I don't know what it is, but young adult books have just a very different tone, and it's not that I don't like this tone, but it's just nice to mix it up every now and then, and I'm hoping I'll get that with Graceling. There's also Eragon. So I read the first book, Eragon by Christopher Paolini, when I was, I think, in elementary or middle school, and then I read the second one, and I think I was just waiting for the third one for so long that by the time it came out, I was like, I'm busy, or whatever, my, teenage brain, whatever the reason was. I never got around to the rest of the series. I think this is one that I would reread someday. I know that it gets kind of picked on for being derivative and being too similar to Lord of the Rings. And I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot of fantasy that's really, really similar to Lord of the Rings. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, I haven't read that one, so feel free to judge me. I do plan on reading Lord of the Rings. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about it. I don't always love more classic fantasy, but I have heard that once you get used to the writing style being very different, that it's a really beautiful writing style and it's still a really good story. So I do want to read these eventually, and I'm very interested to see what I end up thinking. Next would be the Golden Compass series, and I am forgetting what His Dark Materials. I think that's what the series is actually called. This is another one where I read the first one when I was a kid, and I don't know how many of you guys had AR at your school or some form of AR where you had different colors associated with different difficulty levels of books. And you would get points, and there were more points for the harder colors. And I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, purple or dark purple or something was really one of the hard ones. And I think the Golden Compass was considered one of those. And I remember reading it and not knowing what was going on because I think I was too young at the time that I'd picked it up. But I was like, I can read this, I'm smart. And I don't remember it at all now. So if I went back and reread it, same kind of with the Cassandra Clare book, it would basically be brand new to me. The next one on this list is an author. I've not read anything by them, and that would be Stephen King. I know a lot of you really love King, and I'm not saying I don't think he's a good writer or anything, but I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest fan of horror stuff, and so I know that's kind of a big element of his writing. It's a big appeal for a lot of people. It's just not really for myself, and on top of that, I know it's not in every single one of his books, but there's a lot of his books have some weird sexual content, and I don't know, I don't know if I want to read that. Next up would be The Handmaid's Tale. This is one that obviously has become extremely popular with the TV show, and I may read this at some point. I'm not in any hurry, but it seems intriguing to me. Next up would be The Hate U Give. This is one that I do plan on picking up eventually. It's very popular. I feel like it's always at the list of top sellers for young adult books, and it follows a girl whose friend was shot and she's kind of trying to deal with that. She saw it happen, and I've heard really good things about this story, but I haven't picked it up, and I own it and I would like to eventually. The next one would be Wheel of Time. I've read the first 4 books in Wheel of Time, and I didn't hate them by any means, but I didn't love them either, and I found that the more I read, the more I was less interested. I don't plan on picking this one up. I know that makes a lot of people really sad, but I just didn't love those first 4 and 14 books. I mean, I like long series and everything, but 14 books when you're not really loving the series is kind of a lot. Next up, we have the Manga Berserk, and this is a series that my husband had read through the Golden Age arc, I believe is what it's called. It's kind of like the arc that people really love Berserk for. I've heard the nuance with the characters is phenomenal, and my husband was saying the way that the writer-artist, the way that he's drawn, just the expressions from some of the characters and everything, that it just captures things so well, so subtly. And I've heard really good things. The art is beautiful, but this is one that anytime I mention any manga, a lot of times people recommend, and I feel bad, but I do have to say that this one, I know of some of the darker content. It's just a little too dark for me. It's not that I'm like, oh, this is so awful, it sucks, nobody should read it or like it. If you are interested in it, definitely pick it up, but it's a little extra dark for me. Sticking with manga, the next 3 are all mangas: One Piece, Naruto, and Hunter x Hunter. I've watched some of Hunter x Hunter. It was enjoyable, but I might pick up the manga someday. I'm curious, for those that have read it and watched the show, how similar it is. One Piece is super long. Oh my gosh. I know a lot of you have recommended One Piece to me as well. I don't know, guys. It's so long. Naruto, I might pick that one up as well. Definitely let me know your thoughts on those 3, because I want to see what you guys think about them. Last 2 books on this list are pretty different from one another. One of them would be Circe, and then one of them would be Pride and Prejudice. To be honest, Pride and Prejudice is kind of just the classic that I picked, but I don't read a lot of classics. In fact, I'd say I've read very few since graduating high school. I don't know. Classics are just usually not really books I gravitate toward. If you have some classics that you think are really good, that you think I would really like, definitely feel free to recommend some to me. These are not things I'm opposed to picking up. As for Circe, I don't know. I don't know about that one. Maybe, maybe not. Definitely not anytime soon. Anyway, that's it for 20 books, series, authors, whatever, that I haven't read that are very popular, that some of which I plan to pick up, some of which maybe someday, maybe never. Have a great rest of your day. Let me know what popular books you haven't read, and I'll see you guys later.